School. I went to band school. That was the first school I went to. I started there in the first grade. And we had a pretty big class. I think at one time we had 13 girls and 30 or more boys. I think altogether we were more than 40 kids in our class, which was, a big class for one teacher to take care of. And of course, after the first grade, they moved my brother back, as they did with three or four other kids in that class.
We talked about this one already.
I know.
Okay, sorry.
And so, I went through school with him, but the band school was kind of unusual because when I started there, it didn't have any indoor plumbing. And the entire time I went to school there, through the ninth grade, it didn't have any indoor plumbing. And when I first started there, it didn't have any running water. And then I remember when they put the water fountain in, and we had one water fountain, and it was in the hallway, and we'd go to recess, and when you come in from recess, and especially in the summertime, the kids would all have to line up and get a drink of water, and that was the only water fountain in that school. And that was that was one of the things. Of course, we didn't have running water at home, and that was kind of a treat for us to get in line and get a drink of water. We had coal stoves, and I know our teacher would usually pick kids that like farm kids that knew a little bit of something about what they're doing, and we would have to go out and get coal and stoke the coal stove. We had a big old stove in the corner of the room, pot-bellied like stove, and we would go get coal, and that'd be one of my jobs. The teacher would always have me take a coal bucket out and get coal and bring it in, because maybe she thought I knew how to do all that. And even the first grade all the way through until later on, when now the school did have electricity. Later on they put some kind of electric heaters, and they didn't work. They just wouldn't heat enough. They were in the ceiling, and those schoolrooms had high ceilings, and you just couldn't get enough heat down to the lower end, and we'd be in these classrooms with our coats on and everything. And they even come in and tried to insulate the ceilings to try to get more heat, but the entire time that I was there, when it got cold, you just never could get warm in the school. And we had a pretty good class. Our kids were pretty good. My brother was probably the most disruptive person in that class. Maybe not. There was a couple other kids in that class that were always in trouble. And then we had a one-armed principal, and the one thing he was really good at is paddling people. He had a paddle in his office, and even though he was one-armed, if you got in trouble, a teacher would send you down to his office, and it was down at the end of the hall. And he had a small office, and there really wasn't enough room in his office to swing that paddle. So he would stand you out in the hallway and have you bend over, and he'd whack you with that paddle he had there. And for the most part, that was pretty effective, but sometimes kids would rebel against that, and you would have yelling and screaming and carrying on. but it didn't do any good. You still got paddled, And one of the things that people would remind me of when I was in the first grade, of course, coming poor family like we were, we had sweet potatoes and peanuts and turnips, stuff like that, but we didn't have any other supplies or anything. So when I started school, I didn't have any pencils or crayons and things of that nature. They actually issued those things to you in the classroom. The first year, you went in and they gave you 6 crayons and a pencil, and then they started teaching you how to write and that sort of thing. And I didn't know much about all of that, and I actually ate my crayons because I wasn't sure what they were for. So when I got my crayons, I thought it was some kind of treat they were giving me, and I actually ate my crayons, but that all passed.
I'll bet.
and of course,
did all the colors taste the same?
I had to go through the whole school year because you didn't get any extra, you didn't get replacement. Without any crayons, I'd have to borrow other people's crayons, and the big old pencil they gave you, was a big old. It was a tough pencil, I promise you that. And you learn to write and that sort of thing. And one of the stories that my sister asked me to talk about was the story about somebody switching and stealing my lunch. and that is kind of an amusing story because it wasn't in the first or second grade this happened. This was up probably about the fifth or sixth grade, and we didn't have any central heat or water at home or anything like that, and that was a bad winter. We didn't have any money, and about all we had, turnip greens is about all you have in the wintertime. And my mother had made us live on that sort of thing, and we just didn't have any money. So, we ate turnips, turnip greens. That was our regular diet. And I had got to the point where I had all the turnip greens that I really could handle. And I thought, well, I'm going to switch lunches with somebody. In the school, you go in and you hang your coat up in the coat room and you put your lunch up on the shelf. And before the dinner bell rang, I went in there and swapped my lunch. I picked the biggest bag that I could find on that shelf, and I switched lunches. And when the dinner bell rang, I ran out behind the schoolhouse, and I tore that bag open, going to get me a good lunch, get off of them turnip greens, and there wasn't nothing in there but 6 hickory nuts and a ham.
Somebody had it worse than you.
Yeah, I thought to myself, now, I don't believe I'm going to get fat on eating these hickory nuts. But that was one experience that I learned that crime don't pay, because you can't be switching, because sometimes you wind up worse off than you were when you started.
There ain't much inside a hickory.
No, but we managed to get along. We had a basketball team, and I played on the basketball team. Nobody was very good. We didn't have tennis shoes most of the time, and we were so rough that a lot of schools, when they came and played with us, that they just didn't like the way we played, because we just didn't. We knew most of the rules and everything, but it was a pretty physical game until we got a new principal, Mrs. Wallace. And when she came in, she turned everything around. She started preaching that you got to have responsibility. If you're going to have any privilege, you got to have responsibility. And she started weeding out all of these misfits. Like on the basketball team, we had some big boys on that basketball team, but they were older, they probably weren't eligible, because we were only went to the 9th grade, and some of these kids, were already shaven, so she wouldn't let them play, and academically they wouldn't qualify to play either, if you didn't have passing grades, and most of those big boys, that made up the basketball team were not academically eligible to play anyhow.
They've been held back.
Yeah, because they'd been socially promoted, and they were way beyond, the other people in our class.
Mm-hmm.
So she wouldn't permit them to play on the basketball team, and of course that had a big effect on the team, because after that we're a bunch of runts running around there, and we didn't have a very good coach, so we didn't do very good. But we finally got up to maybe my senior year that we developed a pretty good basketball team. We had
Now, what do you mean when you say senior year? You mean 8th grade?
Ninth grade.
9th grade.
Yeah. From there, I graduated to 9th grade, and we